Welcome to the Never Too Early Fantasy Football Podcast, where it is never too early for fantasy football. My name is Jeff.
And I'm Alex.
As always, thank you for downloading, listening, liking, commenting on our podcast videos. Please join our community by subscribing to us on the socials. Our handle on all platforms is at N2EFantasy. We are also available on all major podcasting apps by searching N2EFantasy. Alex, what do we have on today's show?
Today's episode, we're going to cover news around the league for the Black Monday edition. So, post end of the season, the firings that occurred, we're going to cover those. And then we're going to move on into the Wildcard weekend. We're going to preview all the matchups and we'll take it from there. But, Jeff, your former head coach, Ron Rivera, got fired from Washington on Monday. Do you feel like that was a good fire? Do you feel like that was destined to happen? I know that I believe before the season you said that he was going to get fired. I think you predicted it, or at least said he was on the hot seat.
So I think this is Ron Rivera's last stint as a head coach, first of all. And then second of all, it makes sense that Josh Harris, the new owner of the Washington team, would want to move on from Ron Rivera. I do fully anticipate them to visit and try to rename the team as well this offseason. But it'll be interesting to see where Washington goes on a head coach. It does seem like this search is going to be extensive, and they're starting with internal candidates first, and then obviously requesting their external candidates as well. Anything? Do you have a particular direction that you believe Washington moves in?
I think that they go offense. They either go established guy or they go offense. I think Bill Belichick is a potential option for them, but they really should look at Eric B over there, their offensive coordinator, a potential head coaching spot, or they should look at one of the many offensive coaches out there that's pretty prominent, like Frank with the Dolphins would be a good one. Canales, I think, would be a good one. So they need someone who can help develop a quarterback, basically, and see if that's it, or draft somebody in this draft.
Yeah, I was just about to say, I don't know if Howell is it. And we'll see going forward if the new regime believes in it or not. All right, so we can move on to coaching fire number 2, and that is the Falcons move on from Arthur Smith. How do we feel about this, Alex? I think you're pretty excited, right?
I did some cartwheels at work when I found out, and did some skipping, and people asked me what I was doing that for, and I was like, don't worry about it. It's it's football related, but I am very thrilled that he's gone. He is a very mediocre coach. Finished 7-10 all 3 years that he was a head coach. Each year he got extremely talented offensive weapon, and nothing improved. So I'm glad he's gone. I hope that they bring in a different offensive coach and get the most out of this team. I hope they get a quarterback. So if they get a coach and a quarterback, I think they're in business, and I think that they could, if they do it right, I think that they will win the division next year. We'll see who they end up hiring, who they end up bringing in as a quarterback, and see if that ends up being the case. It's going to be contention on that, but well-deserved firing. Well-deserved.
So what happens next year if they don't improve and they have all of this offensive talent? Who are you blaming
They go
then?
7-10 again? Oh, gosh. I don't know. I don't know what you do at that point. Like, it's just destined to happen.
Yeah, I just don't know who wants to go to that job right now because they don't have the quarterback position figured out as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, it's one of the best entertainment cities of the NFL. It's a dome stadium. It's a winnable division. It's a team where literally offensively they just need to trade up for a quarterback, in my opinion. So they have the 9th pick. They have all their draft picks. They literally can just trade up and try to get one of the top 3 quarterbacks, or they can draft the next best guy. Like, it's possible, or they trade for Justin Fields. So there's options, and I think it's actually pretty attractive. Like, to go to a team that already has offensive talent, to have the ammunition to get a quarterback, and in the deepest quarterback draft of the last 20 years or so. It's a good position, I think. So I think somebody will go there, and I think they will have a quarterback change as well.
We will see, but I do believe that Justin Fields gets shipped out of the NFC if he does leave, because I wouldn't want to compete for a playoff spot with Atlanta with Justin Fields and potentially get beaten out there. So just something to keep an eye on. And then Kyle Pitts is about to become a free agent, not this upcoming year, but the year after. And they're going to have to decide on his 5th-year option this year. So he's been kind of a bust so far, which is really interesting. I don't know if it's him or if it is the fact that he doesn't have a quarterback throwing to him. So we'll find out in short order. But that's just one of those questions that I have moving forward.
Okay, well, the next coach that was fired was the Tennessee Titans head coach, Mike Vrabel. He is someone who I have a little bit of fondness for because he was the defensive coordinator for the Texans for a while. So I like him for that. I think he's a decent defensive mind, but and he had early head coaching success with the Titans, but I don't think that he's the guy that everyone's making him out to be. But Jeff, I'll let you talk about the positive side. You're more positive about him, and I'll bring in my criticisms.
So I think this was a big mistake because I think this is a coach that has previous success with this team. He brought Ryan Tannehill and the team to a number 1 overall seed in a pretty stacked AFC. And I just think that his contributions to the team overall is going unnoticed. And I feel like after 6 years, I know he's had 2 down years, but we have to remember last year Ryan Tannehill got hurt halfway through the year, so they had to roll with Malik Willis, who isn't it. And then again, Ryan Tannehill gets hurt this year, and they're rolling with a rookie quarterback that fell down drafts, and they weren't even confident enough to select him with their first pick. So it's just an interesting conundrum. If you don't have the quarterback in this league, you're not going to win. But somehow he coached them to a number 1 seed. So I think overall that he deserves another look this go around in the head coaching jobs. But I know, Alex, you have a very different opinion than me on.
Oh, I think that he heavily benefited from some good offensive coaching hires initially.
Those were his hires.
The so the Packers head coach LaFleur was with the Titans, and that was one of their best offensive years. He left, and he never was able to find someone to fill the void. So the offense has not been great the last 2 years. I also think that he's a defensive-minded head coach, and I think that the defense has been mediocre at best for his tenure in Tennessee. I think they had 1 year where they looked okay and looked solid, and the other years they've been either middle of the pack or in the 20s as far as defensive rankings, yards allowed, points allowed, like turnovers, sacks. So I don't like he's a defensive mind and he's not doing good defensively. So that's a problem for me. Do I think everything's his fault? No. I think the GM has given him a crap team. Each year their roster talent has gone down since he's been there. I don't know how much say he's had with the decisions, but the GM's doing him no favors. They traded AJ Brown. The offense kind of went downhill from there, and Trey Burks isn't it. They haven't really filled out anything else. They got lucky to be able to get Hawkins this year, but even with Hawkins and with Derrick Henry healthy for the entire season, they still weren't very good. Tannehill isn't a top quality quarterback, so you can give him the benefit of the doubt that he hasn't had the quarterback to succeed in his time in Tennessee. But I just think that he he needs a better GM to work with. He needs a better situation. Maybe if he goes into a situation where they already have roster talent and the previous coach was just bad, I think he's the ideal coach for that situation. So I know everyone keeps saying that New England would be a good spot for him just because he played in New England. He went through the coaching ranks a little bit in the New England tree a little bit. But I just think New England's roster is a mess, and I think it's worse than the Titans. And I don't think that he would necessarily turn them around because he's not an offensive guy. I don't think he would be able to attract the coaching candidates that are good. So I think he needs to go to a better team. I think if he went to Atlanta, I think that would be a better spot for him personally than with England. And I think that's crazy because they're just a better team, and I think it's an easier division.
Yeah, so let me correct you for a second here because Matt LaFleur was hired by the Green Bay Packers in 2019, and Vrabel went in 2018 and 2019 went 9-7, and after LaFleur left, they went 11-5 and 12-5. So they actually got better after LaFleur left, and LaFleur is a good coach. So that to me tells me that there's a deficiency of talent and a deficiency of communication between the front office and Vrabel here, because something happened after 2021, and that's when they traded away AJ Brown, which we can say is a huge mistake. But again, he led them to a playoff run in 2019. So he led them to the AFC Championship in 2019, and in 2020 and 2021, he led them to the top 2 seeds in the conference. So 3-year run there, he was a great coach, and then all of a sudden, just a complete fall off. And this was all with Ryan Tannehill. So we want to be very clear on that as well. And I know we talked offline about this, and you want to say that it was a little bit of a down year, but they were still in a Mahomes era, some of it in a Tom Brady era, a lot of it in a Josh Allen era. So they are just chugging along, and I think that he's getting the raw end of the deal here. But we'll see where he goes. I do think he goes somewhere this coaching cycle. Anything else on Vrabel before we move on?
I still think he's overrated, and I'm just trying to pull up the stats from that year. So let me
He
just
made
see here.
Tannehill a
You
Pro
said
Bowler, if I'm not mistaken.
he didn't make Tannehill Pro Bowler. Tannehill came in from Miami and was at least solid. But you said that 2019 is the year that they made the conference championship.
Yep, with a 9-7 record, and then they won 2 playoff games and they lost the third one.
Okay, so they moved off Marcus Mariota and went to Ryan Tannehill,
Yep.
who I think that they acquired, and I think that that explains why they weren't as good the 2 years before was the quarterback situation. So Ryan Tannehill came in that year, and I think he made the difference offensively, as
And he
well as
only
Henry
started
had.
10 games that year, Tannehill.
I know he was just more effective than Mariota. Mariota's just not been a good quarterback in his career. That bleeds into the GM as well, how bad they were. But Derrick Henry had, I think, his best year, one of his best years that year. He was also 5 years younger than now, and I don't know, man. I don't think the offense was doing that great, in my opinion. I
Tannehill
just
had
think that
the year after LaFleur left, Tannehill had 33 touchdowns and 7 interceptions, and then he just fell off a cliff after that. I don't understand how he fell off a cliff, because he even had AJ Brown the year after, and he went 21-14, so he had 12 less touchdowns and 7 more picks. So he literally fell off a cliff. Looking at stats right there, so I think everything points to the quarterback position not right for Vrabel. He did have it right for 2 years with Tannehill, but Tannehill is clearly not it, and he hit a wall the year that they went 12-5, because they went 12-5 in spite of Tannehill's 21-14 interception to pick ratio.
yeah, well, I think that was the best defensive years as well for Vrabel, and everything's just gone downhill since. And
And they
you
keep
can
shipping off talent too. Didn't they ship off a
Corey
safety in
Corey
the
Davis,
offseason?
yeah, that too. Corey Davis left before AJ Brown, and Corey Davis was almost 1,000 yard receiver. So
Yep.
Corey Davis and AJ Brown both being there, having two quality wide receivers to throw to at that time, as well as Derrick Henry, and as well as Johnny Smith had 8 touchdowns and actually did pretty well. So all of those weapons left. So Johnny Smith left. Corey Davis left. He never panned out anywhere else. AJ Brown was traded to the Eagles. So they literally shipped all their talent away except for Derrick Henry. So that's one aspect. But at the same time, the defensive side has just gotten worse. And I think the defensive talent is better than what it was a few years ago. So that doesn't make any sense to me.
I think they shipped a
I
lot
think
of it
he's
away
just,
though.
they shipped more offensive talent away than defense. I think the defensive talent, like they've improved since he took over. They shipped a safety because they had a replacement in the wings. But regardless, I don't view Vrabel as highly as a head coach as some other people, especially a lot of people in the media. I just don't see it. And I know you want to harp on that one year where they were 11-5 and first in the AFC for that year, but I
They're
just
also
think
12 and
that
5 one year too.
I think those are great performances, but what has he done since? Like he's had a losing record since. So
But he
I
started with 4 winning seasons. That's the thing. And then his last 2 seasons, Ryan Tannehill, his starting quarterback, was out for over half the year. and he wasn't even that good at
I
that point.
think I mean, during that time frame, the Texans weren't good. The Colts weren't that great. The Jaguars weren't good. So I think that he was getting 4 or 5 gimme wins from just the division, and I don't know if that's necessarily him being that great. But last year, 7-10. This year, 6-11. I mean, they're only going downhill now. They peaked 2021, 2020. They peaked during that time frame, and I don't see the Titans getting better. But on the same token, I don't know that the Titans can get a head coaching candidate better than Vrabel. Like, do I think he's a top 5 candidate from what's out there right now? No, I don't. And we can have an episode where we talk about coaching candidates and what their best fits are. But I also don't think that Tennessee is as attractive of a destination for these head coaches because the roster talent on offense is terrible, and I don't see a way for them to easily improve. I don't think the GM's very good, and it seems like they're keeping the GM. So
So
I don't
would
know
you
what
say
Tennessee's doing.
Tennessee underperformed this year?
Yes, in some regards. Well, no. I think that they
Oh, I've
might
got
have
you
over.
tracked.
I think they might have overperformed by one game, but I think I did predict them to get 6-11.
And that's what they got. So they
Yeah.
they tracked exactly where you said they would.
Yes,
So
but the
that was based
Colts
on their
were.
talent.
But I only had the Colts getting 5 wins, and the Colts almost made the playoffs, and I think that is largely due to coaching.
I have 4 wins down on my sheet for you for the Colts.
4 wins or 5. Well, that's even more impressive, Jeff. So
I
you're
know.
just making the case for me. So
I know.
I think that he was the arguably the worst coach in the division this year.
Maybe. I think what's his face in Jacksonville can attest to that right now as he's sitting at home for not a time where he should be sitting at home.
Yeah, I just think the timing of them firing Vrabel, especially like I said, I don't think that they can do better.
On Black Tuesday?
Yeah, I don't think that they can do better than him, and I don't think that he's a top tier coach. But after beating Jacksonville and knocking them out of the playoffs, I don't know how you could fire him this year. It doesn't seem smart to me. So I'm of 2 minds of it. It's not a good move for Tennessee to fire him, but he's also, in my opinion, not a top candidate for head coach. Weird spot to be in.
Yeah, absolutely. I just wanted to see if you thought they underperformed or they performed exactly where you thought they wanted to. But we can move on. We have a couple of coordinator changes. It looks like that Wink Martindale is going to be leaving the defensive coordinator position for the Giants. Nothing's official as of this recording. So there's rumors out there that he submitted his resignation. I don't know if a person signs a contract, if they can just resign outside of completing that contract, or something needs to happen with mediation to get him out of his contract. But it does seem like there's some smoke going on there. And as you've mentioned before, Brian Dable does have a history of not getting along with fellow coaches. But I do believe that Brian Dable will be back next year regardless, because his team destroyed the Eagles when the Eagles had to win that game, and the Eagles couldn't get anything going. That would just blows my mind. That game will live in my head rent free. And then also the Cowboys and Giants from week 1, where the Cowboys beat them 40 something to nothing week 1, also leave. Like, how did we get from the Cowboys blowing them out 40 something to nothing to them destroying the Eagles the last week of the season when the Eagles had to win that game? Like, where did that all happen throughout the season? Like, mind blown. Also, Mike Caldwell the Jaguars are moving on from him and his defensive staff, and I do believe they need to start over there. They probably need to start over on the offensive side of the ball as well, because they have a lot of talent. We've discussed offline that they don't have a number 1 wide receiver, in my opinion. Maybe Calvin Ridley's it. Maybe he's not. I think he's more of a number 2 at this point. Kirk's better slot guy at this point, in my opinion. But that's our coordinator moves. And then we have a GM move of Scott Fitterer moving on in Carolina. And it's time to move on from him and start over. As I mentioned on the previous podcast, Hayden Hurst said that there's multiple voices. We need to have one voice going forward with a head coach and a GM, and no more voices in people's heads here going forward. All right.
The number one thing that I thought of is with the injuries that Hayden Hurst has had, that the voices that he was hearing might be in his head.
Well, we wish him a
Hayden,
speedy recovery, because that was a pretty serious injury.
Yeah, maybe in poor taste, but it just kind of lined up that way. Like Jeff said, we wish them a speedy recovery, and we hope that the voices stop in the Panthers' decision making. So I hope they get a good GM. I hope they get a good coach. I think it makes sense to bring them in at the same time. And I think that at some point we're going to talk more about the coaching candidates and where their fits are. So that will be nice to go over. Seems like there's more defensive guys with pedigree than offensive guys, but offensive guys are typically more sought after. So we'll see how that shakes out. But we can start with the wild card matchups, Jeff. So
So let's start off with the two byes. We have the Ravens and the 49ers clinching the one. They're on bye this week. They get home games next week. But the very first matchup of the weekend is the Browns at the Texans. Alex, who are you taking in this matchup?
I'm taking the Texans. I think that the Texans want to stick it to Deshaun Watson and his team. I know that
He's not
Flacco's going to
playing.
start. I know. I know. I think they want to stick it to the Browns, honestly, and they want revenge for losing earlier in the season. I think that Stroud is back. I think Stroud looks good. I think it's going to be Nico Collins dueling against Amari Cooper if Cooper's fully ready to go.
He should
I
be.
think it'll be a fun game. I think the Texans defense is getting better, but you've got to look out for Will Anderson's ankle injury. I think that they're resting him this whole week, and they're going to use him in pass rushing situations. So he won't be out there every snap. But I like the Texans for this game. Stroud played in Ohio. I think that he'll want to beat the Browns. So I know it's at home for the Texans, and I'm happy about that. But I think that this is an interesting matchup. This is the matchup I wanted. I think we can beat the Browns. Jeff,
All right, I'm gonna
go
go with the
ahead.
Browns in
Go.
this. But
I was gonna say
what
go
were
ahead
you
and
gonna
do the
say?
opposite. I was
Yep,
gonna say go ahead and pick the opposite.
I'm gonna pick the Browns because I just think their defense is much better, and I think Flacco is playing at an all-time level right now. And I think that there's nothing that the Texans can throw at him that he hasn't seen when he played for the Ravens and he had to practice against Ray Lewis and that entire defense, which was insane at the time. All right, so we can move forward to matchup number 2, and it's the Dolphins at the Chiefs. And as I had mentioned last podcast, this is going to projected to be 0 degrees. So this is quite a cold rush for the Miami Dolphins. I'm going to go the Dolphins in this matchup. I think they are going to go to Arrowhead and they are going to win. And the reason why I think they're going to win is because I think there's going to be a one quick hit to Tyreek Hill, which is a Tyreek Hill revenge game. And I think the Chiefs will be playing. If the Chiefs are playing from behind, they're going to struggle in this game.
Oh man. Okay. I keep going back and forth in my head on this one because for me earlier in the season, the reason why I picked the Chiefs over the Dolphins was because they were in Germany, and I didn't think that the Dolphins traveled very well. I know they're still going to be on the road for this one, and honestly, I think I'm going Dolphins in this one as well. Even though the Dolphins do pretty poorly against relatively good teams, I don't think the Chiefs are that good of a team right now, and
Me
I
either.
think that the Chiefs' defense is better than their offense this year, and I think, like you said, it only takes a couple big plays for the Dolphins to get ahead. The Chiefs haven't been able to score a lot, so if the Dolphins get 21 or 24 points in this game, it might be enough to beat the Chiefs. And I know it's just crazy considering that we still think of Patrick Mahomes as a top quality quarterback. They just can't get it done. Would it surprise me if the Chiefs won? No, but I think I agree with you this week for the Dolphins. So,
All right. So we can go ahead and move on to the Steelers at the Bills. Oh, I will break this one down first just because I'm an hour away from this particular matchup here. So I think there's no team that I would want to play less than the Buffalo Bills right now. So I'm going to go the Buffalo Bills in this matchup. And I think that they've been playing playoff football since after their bye. And I believe that they may be the team to beat in this postseason.
so no, I agree with you there. I think it's between the Bills and the Ravens, but I don't think the Steelers will be able to beat the Bills this week. I think the Steelers, their best chance would have been against the Texans or against the Ravens, maybe just because, for at least for the Ravens, it's the division rivalry. They seem to know each other pretty well. They can exploit weaknesses, but I think the Bills are just too hot right now. I think that Josh Allen is a one-man wrecking crew, and he's very fun to watch because he throws risky plays and they work out for him. They don't work out for him, but he has won several games straight now. So I'm going Bills as well.
All right, that's a good matchup.
All right, Jeff. Let's talk about Jeff's matchup of the week, and that's going to be the Green Bay Packers at the Cowboys, the Mike McCarthy revenge week, the Jordan Love versus Dak Prescott. I think that there's going to be comparisons between those two quarterbacks for a while, especially if Jordan Love keeps playing better, keeps improving. Jeff, I know Green Bay is in Dallas, and I know that Dallas has home field advantage. They're a better team on paper. They're the 2 seed. Who do you have? Do you think the Packers can upset the Cowboys?
No, I do not. I think the Packers are too young to win this matchup. I think this matchup will be relatively easy for the Cowboys, and I think the Cowboys should move on. If the Cowboys somehow lose this matchup, I probably could predict an end of tenure for Mike McCarthy.
Interesting. All right.
They just absolutely cannot lose it.
I'm gonna do I'm gonna go Packers in this one, honestly. I think that the Cowboys won't get it done in the postseason. I think that Aaron Jones is coming, like he's back at the right time. He's been hot the last 2 weeks. I think that Reed is a really good wide receiver. I think that Kraft is filled in admirably at tight end. I think that Love has done just enough. I think that the Packers defense is almost as good as the Cowboys defense. I think that last week or earlier in the season, I think that the Packers have done a good job at scheming against top pass rushers. So I think that they will find ways to limit Parsons' damage. And I think that the Packers will win this week.
All right, we will see. I just think the Packers are too young. They're one of the youngest teams, and I don't know if they'll have Christian Watson back. And I just think that CeeDee Lamb is better than anything that they have in Green Bay on offense right now. And I don't even know if Jaden Reed is 100% right now.
I think CeeDee Lamb is the only offense for the Cowboys, like for Dak to throw to consistently. I think that the Packers defense will scheme towards him, and I think that they'll limit him. I think he won't get 250 yards. He'll get less than 100. I'm not saying he won't be I'm not saying he'll be completely shut out, but he'll be much less than what he has been the past few weeks. So I think the Packers will win.
All right. Now, I know you're being facetious before, but this is my matchup of the week. The Rams, the Lions, Goff versus Stafford, Stafford versus Goff. Finkel is Ihorn, Ihorn is Finkel. So in this particular matchup, this is that ginormous trade that went down 3 years ago where it led to a Rams Super Bowl victory. I know right off the bat that Alex would love to see the Lions win this matchup. And it's possible, but I think that not resting players last week, getting Laporta hurt, getting Khalif Raymond, their kick returner, hurt, I think this is all going to come back to bite them. They even got a young safety that was performing quite well, hurt. I think this is all going to come back to bite them. And I think the Rams rested. They did right. They have Puka. They have Cup. They have Kyron Williams. And I just think that going into this week that you have to probably go the Rams in this matchup. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think that they are relatively evenly matched. I think that this is, on paper, the best matchup of the week. And
I like the
they're
fact that the
both.
Rams sat Kyron Williams last week. I think that'll help big time.
I don't know, man, because rest brings rust, and playing makes you sharp. Yes, you risk injuries, but you just played
So,
the week before, so
so
there's two schools of thought.
Kyron Williams missed week 7 through week 11. He came back week 12 and scored 35.4 fantasy points. I think he does just fine on rest.
Well, I'll just say that the Lions have the second best rushing defense, and I think that they match up in so many regards. The Lions are a little bit better at points per scored. They're a little bit better at total yards per game. They're a better rushing team. They're a better passing team. They're a better time of possession. I just think that yes, the Rams are pretty close, but I'm gonna go Lions in this one, and I do think it can go either way, but I think the edge should go to the Lions, especially at home.
All right, so you're gonna go Lions in that matchup, but I do think that's the matchup of the week, and I think the NFL very purposefully put it on Sunday Night Football, and my eyes will be completely on that matchup. Now, I think the NFL also made the Monday Night Football matchup of the Eagles and the Buccaneers purposeful as well, because I think ESPN does get the worst of the matchups out of all of the regular season, and now they're going to get the postseason worst matchup in the Eagles at the Buccaneers. Both of these offenses appear to be limping. Which one do you believe, Alex, gets it right first? Will it be the Eagles getting it right, or will it be the Buccaneers get it right in this game?
I think the Buccaneers win this game. The Eagles are ranked 30th on defense for points against per game, and the Bucks are 6th for points against per game. And the difference between offense and defense between the Bucks and the Eagles, the Bucks are better combination of the two. And I just think that the Eagles, they've been struggling. They lost to the Giants. I think that the Bucks are a better team than the Giants. So Bucks get to play at home. I think that instead of targeting on one particular wide receiver for stats purposes and incentive bonuses, I think they will now target their best receiver, Evans. I think they'll also get Godwin involved. I just think that they're the better team functionally right now, whereas the Eagles are more talented but directionless. So I think the Bucks win, and I think that puts Sirianni on a hot seat.
Yeah, I think Sirianni could be another coach that could be coaching for his job on Monday. But let me go with the Eagles in this matchup. I feel like they've been embarrassed enough, and I just feel like they're going to play angry this week. So I'm going to go the Eagles. You're going to go the Buccaneers, and we have a bunch of differences this week, and that's actually a lot of fun. As
There's
far as
only
that goes.
6 matchups, and we have 4 differences.
It's the playoffs. It's the best of the best. I think the first one you picked with your heart and not with your brain, but that's just my interpretation of your homerism, we'll call it.
Well, I clearly don't have a brain then, but we will see who is more correct about these matchups. It's playoffs, anything can happen, but I am excited. I am excited for playoffs to start.
All right, Alex, I have a surprise for you to end the podcast. And I did a spreadsheet based on our preseason predictions and where everything ended up. So I'm going to go through this really quickly. So playoff percentage. So this includes yeses and nos. You got 62.5% correct of playoff teams and non-playoff teams. I got 68.75% correct of playoff and non-playoff teams. So I beat you. I edged you a little bit there, but this is where we take a turn for the worst for me. You got 7 teams' records completely correct this year, and I only got 4. So you got Buffalo, Miami, Tennessee, Pittsburgh, Washington, Detroit, and San Francisco 100% correct. I got Cleveland, which I know you lambasted me about, but that's okay. I got Cleveland correct. I got Washington correct, Green Bay, and Atlanta correct as well. So, and I know you were a little bit higher on Atlanta than the rest of the than I was, at least. I don't know about the rest of the field, but than I was. But teams within 1 win, you had 6 and I had 8. So that kind of makes up a little bit of the difference. 2 teams within 2, you had 7 and I had 9. So we're pretty close. Now, if we move on to the teams that we most underestimated, Alex, the team that you most underestimated was the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They got 6 more wins than you had given them in the preseason, before the regular season kicked off. I had 3 teams that had 6 more wins than I had projected, and that's the Colts, the Raiders, and the Buccaneers. So those are 3 teams that I think overperformed their preseason prediction. And then the most overrated team, Alex, your most overrated team was the Los Angeles Chargers. You gave them 6 more wins than they actually got. And my most overrated team is the Carolina Panthers, and I gave them 7 more wins than they actually got. So I guess maybe I'm the homer of this all, but yeah, that is kind of our breakdown of this, and I actually look forward to doing this again next season because that was a lot of fun.
I hope that we only get better, and I hope that you learn the lesson that you're the actual homer, not me. So I'm only accurate about my team, and I adjust as we go along and get new information. And you're like, my team's making the playoffs. I'm like, I don't think so, man.
All I'll say to this is whose team beat who this season?
Yeah. The Texans like to lose to bad teams, but still have a good season somehow. I don't get it. We're trying to help you.
uh,
You're welcome.
I hope you win the
You're
Super Bowl
welcome.
because I want to say that we won against one of the Super Bowl winners, and the other team that we beat this year. I'm trying to think who it is right now.
I don't I don't think the Texans have the roster talent to make it all the way to the Super Bowl. Like that would just be insane fortune to make it that far. I just think that we can beat the Browns because they're missing half their team, I feel like.
Yeah, other team that we beat was the Falcons, and they're not in the playoffs. So you're our only hope to say that we beat the Super Bowl champion.
It's not gonna happen, but I think we'll beat the Browns.
All right, that is one of our differences, but we will see on that front. But yeah, I just wanted to run through our hits and misses of our preseason prediction and kind of put a bow on the regular season as we enter the 2023 season playoffs. I know it's in 2024, which is really weird to say, but I can't wait for some playoff football. I know what I'll be doing all weekend, and hopefully you'll be doing the same, Alex.
I definitely will. All right. Well, that does it for another episode of the Never Too Early Fantasy Football Podcast. Thank you all for downloading or listening to this episode. And please don't forget to like and subscribe. Please leave us a comment and share the show. Every little bit helps.
You can find us on all podcasting apps by searching N2EFantasy and with our handle at N2EFantasy on all social media platforms. Please join our community and give us a follow. Until next time, take care of yourselves and remember, it's truly never too early for fantasy football. Thank you again.
Bye, everybody.